Hi there, welcome to the Noah Presgrove case. Today we're doing a focused map analysis on the presence and importance of the field in regard to possibly Noah Presgrove being killed over there or dying in some way, references to what people have suggested in recent time in the comment section, a possible link to what Sarah Long was giving as an example only, which others interpreted as a slip of the tongue, and just trying to work out overall how much of it links and can any of it be applied to the court documents in recent time. Join me in this live premiere and share your thoughts and opinions in the live chat box on the right hand side of the screen. I am going to try and do a map analysis today, an open one, but also point out some updates along the way which has come about with counterpoints. There is another interesting comment, but I'll get to that tomorrow so it doesn't overshadow, or this doesn't overshadow, and vice versa. I'm also going to look at the comment section from the last YouTube video I did because it was very active. It's not been like that in a while, but granted there has been breaking news recently and more material to work with. So big shout out to everyone that has joined along in recent time, and of course those that have stuck around all this time, and even shout out to the people that have returned back. So back in 2022, covering different cases and communities, I've suddenly seen returning familiar faces, which is a big positive. So I do appreciate that. And as well, the super chats and the super stickers and any memberships which have come about from last night, days before. Big shout out to Donna Bond there. It's very positive to see. If anyone is interested in additional videos and recent breaking news coverage, if you have missed out or if you didn't manage to watch through all the videos, you'll be able to find that top right corner where the eye symbol is up there, and there will be a playlist with some loose videos attached. And if you want to support my channel in an alternative practical way, there is a PayPal link below in the comment section pinned message. Be sure to also leave your comments, thoughts and any questions, anything down below, because it will help with spreading awareness of the videos so more people can see it and learn about the case. And this video indirectly influenced by some comments in recent time, some people wording it with a level of confidence, whereas me, I'm doing it based on a theory and an idea. Whilst yes, we looked at the pasture yesterday, what Kathy Bingham, private investigator, was suggesting or claiming from a call in the past of Noah taken out front porchway, rounded round the back, loaded up in the side-by-side around the pasture, and then driven to the highway and dropped off. But is there any possible way that leading up to it could have occurred on the field itself, more north? Because there's enough space around and there's enough field of darkness to cover. So from a distance, you're not going to see much. But you've always got to take in mind the factors of noise, how noise can travel. And I guess if there is a level of wind or a breeze that can travel sounds further distance, but if it's quite still, the air, though quiet because of the time of day, time of night, you'd think you'd hear something, whether it be a commotion, a scream, a growl, any type of noise like that, any type of resistance, force, a fight. But at the same time, it might also come down to the type of possible attack and whether it was an instant death or not. If it was instant, wouldn't have been enough time to make any noises probably. But if there were attackers present, did they make any sounds? Did they say anything? It makes you think. So we are going to be combining bits together, start off with some screenshots for context, then follow on through with the YouTube comments for additional understandings and additional points with associating it and tying from the field, also linked with the marks on the body, more so on the back, rashes and grazes, to understand how it could link there. The only thing to acknowledge, because I don't know if there was a screenshot, conversation, text, or if it was in words by somebody else or audio, but it was mentioned, I believe, around the time that Jack Newton gave his thoughts on where Noah could be. So around 5:30 in the morning when he woke up or was woken up, and it might have been Jasmine Millan that told him about Noah not being present. It would make sense when Jasmine Millan was also the one that did the snap post saying, well, Noah's missing, But take in mind, that was at 3:41. 3:41. And it was 5:30. From what I can remember, supposedly that Jasmine alerted Jack, or when Jack woke up around that time, Jasmine gave like a heads up as to what's happened. Now, why wouldn't Jasmine tell Jack earlier if there were searches as well conducted earlier on? For a search to be conducted, regardless of length, would imply a level of concern for that friend. He's gone missing, we can't find him. Give or take some time, he might return back, but he doesn't. Well, a level of concern to go out looking, but no urgency to tell the best friend, Jack Newton, up until later at 5:30 possibly. Why is that? Because they didn't want to alert or worry Jack Newton because Jack was asleep and they didn't want to disturb him. They felt that maybe the partygoers could go look for Noah themselves and retrieve Noah possibly. And then when it was unsuccessful, it was like, well, we might as well tell him now. And what did Jack say at 5:30 or just roundabout then? Even though Robin Smith, Ashley Chadwick said it was actually 5 in the morning, some discrepancies never really cleared up. Jack's answer at the time was, well, he's probably laying in the field somewhere and he might get up if it gets a bit too warm and return back. Laying in a field. And Sarah Long made an example reference to teeth of Noah in a field, and Noah likely in a field. And then some random commenters just recently on my channel that's where it happened with Noah. So there's a lot of mentions and references to the field, whether it be as a scenario example given or a possible outcome where Noah could be in the process of walking away or in the process of dying. Now, how much DNA and evidence would be out there? Well, we can focus in on the field later, because I know some people have said, well, visually, would it have caused this or that? And got to understand satellite imagery, the relevance of it doesn't always link back because of the time of the season when it's been taken from the aerial shots. It does differ from when I did cover the case in earlier time, when you look at the dates and all that. But before we get too heavy, let's just look at the screenshots first to set the tone. Here we are with an example comment. Credit to Emo Bunny, who appears to be a newish viewer. I've not seen them before. The video last night, they commented and said, it was in the field. They killed him in the field, guys. How do y'all not piece this together? Well, there's one thing piecing it together, and then there's another being able to use hard evidence and material to form a strong sense of understanding. Theorizing, coming up with ideas and possibilities is fine, but it depends how the language is used. And in terms of how it's worded here, it's as if it's like a fact with high confidence, but do we actually know for it to be a fact? Is there enough hard evidence, right? And as well with the scrapes, the road rash as it's been called on the back area, more dominated on the left-hand side, would any of that be caused through dying in a field, being dragged in a field? We've got Lindy says, well, it seems some stage he was dragged behind a vehicle, suggest some of his injuries could have been through the field and could have hit trees, etc. Well, in fairness, there's not really many trees in the field, if not any. They're all around the perimeter, the outline near the woodland area. The fields are pretty, I guess, flat you could call it, unless there's some sharpness on the ground and sharp vegetation, spikes, anything like that, any loose material or scrap, but it should be pretty clean and open. But, you know, it could be an idea. The field needs to be looked at, or suggested at least, and I have done some coverage in the past, and we can always return back like what we're doing now. And anyone in the chat, you let me know whether you think Noah was killed in the field or in a field, and do you think that at some point Noah was dragged behind a vehicle, or is that not possible? I personally think if Noah was to be dragged by a vehicle, more of his back, besides just the left side, would have been covered in additional marks. But because it being more dominated on one side rather than the other, and even in the middle, it makes you think it was more concentrated. And if it's more concentrated, maybe more dragged on one side than the other. But if you're being dragged by a vehicle, normally the back of your head is hitting the ground, normally how they do it. Not that it happens often, but when you think of it, and the back is completely flat on the ground and it's all being scraped, the whole surface area is being covered. Whereas that's not really the case with Noah, based on the pattern of injuries. But besides that, Sarah Long, this will be archived, which may not be present anymore, but on a Reddit post in the past, which I documented at the time. Not that we've got to read all this here, but I just wanted to show you as proof and evidence that it came from Sarah Long. So she had like a long paragraph, so it was impossible to fit it all onto one screen. But just know, what's mentioned here is mentioned from this like comment thread, this paragraph by Sarah Long, right? Just so you know the context of where it came from. It was on Facebook in response to Amy Michelle Tuesday Horzemper, but it was reposted, archived on Reddit as part of a discussion. And this is where it gets interesting. So we'll just read it from the top. Cleared, none of those had blood present and none were clean. The teeth on the lower mandibular arch, when fracturing, normally end up in the lower vestibule or floor of the mouth, like his autopsy revealed. I can't imagine a bunch of drunk teenagers would have enough sense to find his lost tooth fragments in the dark in a wheat field, much less gather up teeth fragments from a field, then transport body and teeth into a vehicle without a trace of blood and place them perfectly near the body to stage a scene. I can't imagine these kids being able to carry that out, not to mention urine. Usually when the body dies, urine or fecal matter is excreted from the body, and I can't imagine those kids could scoop up his, stuff. It's very specific, unless the reason why Sarah was because it was in response to Amy that may have been talking about that type of environment. So that's why Sarah was responding back to that in particular. But I just find it very specific, and it's kind of interesting. A bunch of drunk teenagers. Is that Sam? And his lost tooth fragments. But why a wheat field exactly? Why does it have to be that wheat field? Why can't it be on a dirt road? Why can't it be just outside the party house? Why can't it be the pasture? Why specifically the wheat field mentioned by Sarah at the time? Gathering up fragments from a field, meaning that's likely where Noah could have been then, from like how it's been suggested by others. And then the transportation of the body, moving it on, away from site, away from property. So there's less questions, less links back to the ones that own the house, the ones that live there. I mean, as bad as it is and foul play present, you can understand why if Noah was to be killed somehow, and if people are responsible for that, you understand why some, those responsible if, would be inclined to move the body on as a means of protecting themselves and maybe protecting others because it being on site. So that at least would make sense. Gathering teeth in a field, what, needle in a haystack? Depends what the vegetation of the field was like as well. How dense is it? Is it just all dirt? Is it all thick, dense bushes and grass? Depends the time of the season as well. Whether things have grown and flourished, or if it's gone a bit dry and dead. That needs to be acknowledged too. But the transportation of a body and teeth, and without a trace of blood, well, because the field and the party house property supposedly wasn't searched, who knows whether there was blood or not in the field. In regard to the highway, in that spot, there was some blood. A lot? Not really. But we can do a follow-up on that tomorrow, don't you worry about that. But for the most part of it, there was blood at least. Traces that, blood hair, Noah's hair, boom. But does it justify it enough? Not everybody agrees, of course. If Noah was to be transported from point A to point B, if there was any blood spillages, splatters in the field to the pasture, because police never searched the area, we as well wouldn't know if there was blood there or not. As soon as and if Noah was to be put into a vehicle to be transported, yes, blood could leak about in the vehicle, and that's about it. As soon as taken out of the vehicle on the highway, a bit more blood spillage. And in between, there's blood loss. Eventually, you're going to run out of blood, or it's just the flow of it's not going to be as intense as the beginning part, as it's starting draining away. So there's some things you need to be acknowledged. Whilst this may not be possible, or that's unlikely, we always acknowledge that, well, is there evidence to support it, yes or no? Or is it just the uncertainty, meaning anything's possible? If police didn't search the other areas of interest, what we're talking and looking at, well then anything's possible in a way. And others could complain about that, but if it's just ideas and theories, it's not going to harm the case. And do you think it's kind of strange what Sarah Long mentioned here? Leave a comment below. We can look at it visually though shortly, but let's just acknowledge the additional questions or any comments from the video last night. Let's start from the bottom and work our way up. First of all, we've got Linda. Hope you all had a great day. Appreciate that. Shout out to Linda from Sweden. Cleo, 100 video number 1. That's appreciated. Glad you liked the video. And yep, we've got Martha Robinson. And they say, well, first of all, welcome, Martha. I've not seen you before. I don't know if you're new to the channel or not, but it's good about your hair. And Martha says, I love how you keep the photos up whilst you're talking and beyond. Love. Thank you so much for doing that. Other podcast creators only showed the pictures for a moment and then showed themselves. I like to take a good long look, taking everything in several times if possible. You are awesome and very detailed orientated, and I appreciate that. So that's a big positive to see. It's the type of comment I've not really thought about or had in mind that would come about, but it's everything that I would hope for. So that's all good, because I myself, when I do my style of coverage, it works best for me. It's got a better flow, I can talk more, and I don't need any notes or bullet points on screen. I'll just look at a visual image and then that can tell 1,000 words itself. And we just go from there. And I do it when possible as well, right? Sometimes we don't always have enough material to work with, so it can make it a bit limited. But it's good that Martha is on the same wavelength as me, taking it all in, taking your time, of course. That's what I try and do as well with my analysis, hence why they can be quite long. There's been times in the past with other cases where I've looked at one photo and it's taken me 20 minutes to an hour to analyse, because I'm looking at all the little details within, on the screen, what's present, what's hidden, maybe enhancing the image as well, because there's always things lurking in the background, right? So yeah, it's good what Martha says. And Penny Lynn Bernal agrees as well. Shout out to Penny. Not seen them in a while, so it's good about the present. Carl too. I agree. Much focus on maps and screenshots, etc. It just so happens, Carl, we got the maps tonight, so that's all good. And yeah, moving on. Stephen, none of it happened to Noah. He didn't walk away after they jumped him. Well, if you're going to get jumped and preferably killed, you're not probably going to be walking away after that, are you? But in terms of saying none of it happened, as in what? Noah being killed on the front porchway? He didn't walk away? Response-wise, Emo says, it happened in the field. They're trying to pull a weekend at Bernie's, whatever that means. I made a reference of, well, what about hard evidence? And the response to Stephen at the time was, so where do you think they jumped him then? If none of it happened as in the build-up, but being jumped and killed did happen, where's the location? Where did it take place? On site of the property or not? Inside of the house or not? Very unlikely to be inside of the house, because there would have been witnesses present, and surely Caden would have woken up if he had heard anything inside. We got +1, consistent with the hashtags, of course. Stephen, once again, that Noah Presgrove was killed on the front porch. That's where the fat girl posted saying Noah's missing. It looks like they expect to see him again. I really hate these party kids. So Stephen is referring to Jasmine Millan in that snap post. Did Jasmine at the time look like she was expecting to see Noah again in an innocent way? I guess over time you can see it that way, and Jasmine did do an update post November 2023 saying it was harmless at the time, it wasn't meant or with intent of darkness, weren't anticipating what was to follow up shortly after that, snap, etc. But hold on a minute. Lindy is saying Avery? What? Fat? I mean, whether someone's fat or not, how does it link to Noah's death? And does it matter that much if someone is fat? I mean, I'm a bit of a fat bastard, but I can still breathe and do my video, so it's not the end of the world. Anyway, what else? See if these cops spray luminol on the porch. Bet you they don't. They didn't back then. They won't. They condone this crime. I mean, bold words to be saying that the police condone the crime itself and are okay with it. Do we have absolute evidence to support that? It's only because you got to protect yourself as well. You start saying these really bold lines and turn out not to be true, could get in trouble. Like how people have used words of confidence and certainty stating as a fact that Jack did kill Noah, but do we have enough hard evidence of that? If people say, I think, I believe, theory, opinion-based wise, this and that, well, that's fair. But as for the luminol, it's been mentioned a few times in the case, but never came about. Sounds a bit dodgy, but can any members of the general public get a hold of luminol or so? I'm surprised no one's, not that it's been advised, of course, but I'm surprised no one has taken it into their own hands to go along the lines of that in the area. Doesn't she remind you of the Manson girls? Once again, Stephen calling out Jasmine Millan as being one of the Manson girl followers. Whether that be facial expressions, hairstyle or hair colour. But once again, how does it link to Noah's death? Is it because you were interpreting it as a cult? People sticking together, staying together and protecting one another? Stephen doesn't. Okay, so it's mentioned twice. I don't know why. Carl thinks, are you talking about Kathy Bingham? Kathy Bingham being one of the Manson girls? I don't think so. That's not what Stephen's referring to. She might say you let him get away, was supposed to kill him, so those girls might have killed him. Tragic. Might. So not for certain. Sherry, yeah, justice prevail. Shout out to Glenn. Emo Bunny says, no, that's why it happened in the field. Also, I've been around drunk people most of my life. Murder isn't something that just happens like that. This was planned. The thing is, Emo Bunny, that the lawsuit with the presence of Noah's family in the first place and attorneys helping and filing it, it was stated or at least suggested that a murder, the killing / possible accident took place with Noah and others partygoers being involved in that, at least 2 or more people, but it's not being treated, even by the family and their outlook and the document, it's not being treated as planned, premeditated, like more so in the moment. And to be honest, it can be in the moment, maybe more so with strangers, granted, but as long as there is alcohol present and there's a murder, it doesn't have to be premeditated. It can be in the moment. Being in the moment, heat of the moment, because of the alcohol levels and factors there, where it can send people into uncontrollable fits of rage, erraticness, unstable, uncomfortable, short temper, short fuse, higher levels of aggression, frustration and things like that. Not all bodies and people react or respond great with alcohol and so on. So, interesting. We got CL. They all had to saw the blood everywhere. People don't clear their phones and say they don't even know Noah. guilty. These young adults should have all been brought to the station and interviewed. But they were supposedly interviewed very in the early days. It's just that publicly we've not seen it. This first-degree murder, I think this was premeditated by some of the young adults and minors. So that's what you think, an opinion, fair enough. But if you look back at the lawsuit which has been filed by the family, Noah Presgrove's family, they don't believe it to be premeditated, but still the possibilities of a beating on the spot. Lindy, extremely suspicious. Do I think it's extremely suspicious? Not quite. But it depends what happens along the way as well, with evidence collected. Even though enough time's passed by now. It was in the field. They killed him in the field, guys. How do you not piece it together? So you saw it yourself, the screenshot. And the additional response to my question, Lindy said, if Noah was also dragged along a road or a gravel verge along the ways, it was said somewhere that there was a plant matter stuck in laces of his shoes, which could suggest a dragging through a field and then up onto the roadside, perhaps by the side-by-side. Didn't some people come forward saying they seen this riding along the road near where Noah's body was found? I believe that was like around 5 a.m, I think. Could potentially have been after they left Noah there on the side of the road. But if Noah Presgrove, died just after 3:30 or close to 4 a.m. as an estimate, then why would that side-by-side be seen shown shotting off, fleeing the area possibly, as that witness saw on the day, but at around 5 a.m. or roughly? Why that many hours passing by? How long does it take just to pick up a body and then dispose of on the highway? Unless there was a lot of planning and fiddling about. But, what's mentioned here by Lindy, we can apply it to the maps visually, as in what do we see? It will be limited in terms of the vegetation and how it looks visually compared to other times of the seasons, compared to at the time of the party as well. What we do know is it was quite dry at the time. But being dragged through a field, in terms of shoelaces, inside of the shoelace, that there was grass, debris, stuff like that, vegetation. But Alicia gave a possible point of view to that because Caden Pressey also had grass in his shoelace. And that occurred Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening when driving back in the Ford Ranger in one of the fields. So the presence of a field and gathering vegetation seems to link. Okay. Is Jack Newton's favourite movie Looper? No clue. Never heard of before. What else do we have? Timestamp into my video. Emo says, you said the tarp. So you mean the same one that Noah's brother Dalen saw Noah under? I've watched his interview over and over. Whose tarp was it? Not even that. Doesn't Caleb is friends with the sheriff or any police associates with? If that's the case, all of Terrell needs to be investigated. Well, me personally, I wasn't talking about the same tarp. I don't think the same tarp would have been used in both the disposing of Noah and the covering of Noah after, because of possible touch-base DNA and blood on the sheet as well. If any tarp was used, it would have been separate to the one that was later placed. Caden Pressey made the mention of when he was there sometime, he tried applying a towel onto Noah and wasn't able to. And supposedly one of the truckers did it themselves, a towel. So what, the switch from a towel to then a tarp? If they keep changing the sheets, well, that's going to absorb some of the blood as well, if it's leaking out from a certain angle. So, more blood soaked up in clothing, material and whatnot, less chance of blood reaching the ground and covering the area. So that's another interesting thing to acknowledge. What else do we have? Also, this is something bigger, something that's been happening for a while. I believe there's something darker than just party gone wrong and a murder. I want to know what led up to this because I've been around murders and alcoholics. This does make sense. You've been around murderers. That's unfortunate, that. I wonder the sheriff knows what's going on. Like I said, some have labelled him as corrupt. That's what people's opinions are in the community, as we've seen ourselves. And Tara, welcome Tara to my channel. They say it's a small town, notorious for being part of the good old boys club. I also watched a video that Jack's dad is friends with some higher ups in town, so maybe he's getting help to keep his son and the others from going down. If that was the case, then would Caleb be commenting publicly then on the People article by saying, well, you know, this wrongful death lawsuit, it's a waste of time, it's a waste of emotion, and it's actually doing the opposite of making progression? Would you be that vocal if you were trying to pull strings in other directions? Or do you only issue your complaints and distresses because you know you're innocent, you know others are innocent, you're confident in that, and you've got nothing else to hide, nothing else to pull in power? But if you did have power or control, you'd try and keep it low-key as possible and not make too much noise outwards publicly, so then you lay it low. Worth taking in mind. Anyway, with what's been said here, I guess we'll apply it to the map. Here we are. So I'm just keeping the markers as they are, whether it links to the same stories or not. Might as well have the Coffee Bean Cam reference as well about being loaded in a side-by-side, whilst they say pasture. The reference of the field is also possible too. Take in mind the markers which are in the field aren't relevant to the field. I just move them about so the notes aren't in the way of one another, just to spread them out. I mean, you know, when it comes to Sunday evening, afternoon, Sunday, you had Caden, you had Noah, you had Jack, you had Brylan, Isaac, which driving about in a Ford Ranger shooting animals in the field. What field exactly? Was it the perimeter of this field here, as you can see, which is kind of like the south field? Or was it the north field, as you see here, this area? Decent size as well. The outlines, you do have trees. So when Lindy was saying, you know, if there's trees present and Noah's bashing against them whilst being dragged, that could have caused it. To be honest, if you are going to transport a dead body, you're probably better off putting it in the vehicle rather than dragging it across the ground. Across the ground will just leave too much evidence and trails behind, meaning more effort to clean up after. Placing a body in a vehicle, it's more concentrated where the evidence and the mess will be, and a bit easier to clean up afterwards if that was ever considered or done. But for the trees, they're on the outer side, the outer skirt, I mean, as you can see, around the edges. So even if Noah was in the field for whatever reason, and possibly been attacked or dragged as well, there's no trees present in the field from what I can see here. There might be some lumps, there might be some bumps, bits of bushes here or there, but for most part of it, from what I can see visually, there's no trees, only on the outer skirt area. And then, to be honest, in the north field here, where it could have taken place, I don't see any trees whatsoever, do you? Just the outer skirt area. Over this way, you got the sand plank crossing, the quarry. Not too far from the party house, but it's been worded like it's fenced off. Now, I think what people were suggesting was, if anything happened in the field closer to the party house, out of sight of party goers in the dead of darkness, if you want to word it like that, and if Noah was loaded into a vehicle and then transported from point A to point B, could the field have been a shortcut to drive on, to get back onto a road such as the Sandplank Crossing area, to get on, drive here, take a left onto the highway and much closer. So you're kind of out of sight from being witnessed. So no one sees you leaving the party house from the main entrance way or the pull out of the highway, taking a bit of a back road off, more of an off-road approach. There is a but, because people have said the Sandplank Crossing, private, not accessible, and the field itself is fenced off at a certain point, meaning you wouldn't be able to drive through and get onto the Sandplank Crossing. It's not possible. Now, can we actually see it? I can see outlines, I can see the perimeter of how it's shaped, the field and whatnot, but I don't know if that's just patterns or it's down to a fence line. It can be hard to see fence lines if there's possibly covered up by vegetation as well. like what we saw down the dirt road going to the party house site. Just to give you another example once again. If you're looking here, with the exception of the yellow line, what do you see along or in parallel to the dirt road? You see like a white line, but that could mean anything. Some black dots, which are the overhead power line. Yes, you see the distinct outline of a dirt road, but do you see the distinct outline or markers of a fence? You don't. The exception may be here, that thin black line next to the tree could well be fence line, the perimeter of the pasture, hence why it's a different colour compared to the rest of the field. So this small bit of property, or portion of property, and the pasture in the front could be fenced around. I'm not an expert. When looking at the footage up close, it's hard to tell when it's dark nighttime footage. When looking at the daytime, we don't really have any from a distance, and that's satellite imagery. But it's important to acknowledge where there might be access points, entry, exit points. As said, you might not be able to see the fence running down there, but there is a fence. It's just covered by the grasses, the vegetation. In terms of Sarah calling it a wheat field, well, at the time of the season of when this was taken, not close or relevant to the party then, I'm guessing that could be a wheat field based on the colour. I said the exception is you do have one tree there in the field. That's the only one out of it all from the looks of it. So unless got caught, bashed against that, but I don't think so personally. Trees there, but that's not on like the field literally. The other tree in the distance is closer to the party house, and then further on it's just all flat and open, so there's not much room for friction the same way as contact with skin made on a road, as you see there. We're being rough and grainy, the texture of it scrapes the friction, whereas on grass fields it's going to be a little bit smoother. You could still get grass burns, you could get some marks and stuff, but not the same ones associated with the autopsy, I guess. But why not look further down at the sandplank crossing just to see if we can reinforce it. I believe it might have been Brooke Bounds-Carter that made the reference. Is there anything about private? Railroad crossing. Right, there we go. I don't know if you can see, but there is clearly a fence line running all the way down in parallel to those overhead power lines. So I'm not too sure where the property in the field of the party house ends at, because it's over that way. Over that way. The field comes all the way down. If it is owned by the same people or not, there are clear divisions and fence lines and markers and perimeters, meaning if you used to drive down the field, you would not be able to get onto the highway because you've got a ditch which runs all the way down in parallel to the highway. And then over that, you've got the railroad tracks which run all the way down. You would need to find a railroad crossing in which there is one available here, as we see at the Sandplank crossing. And then there's another railroad crossing down there, which is at the party house. That's about it. There'll be others further on, but they're spaced out. And we're focusing in between the party house entranceway and the Sandplank crossing entranceway, because that's where people are thinking it happened, in between the two spots, more so over on the field area. And then the field area was used to drive down it to then cut off onto the highway, but you'd have to rely on a railroad crossing. And this particular railroad crossing, well, it's fenced off from the field area, so you can't go from the field onto that dirt road path. Will it allow me to show any other way? Hopefully you can see that on both sides there are visible fence lines which run down in parallel, and there's more fence lines in the distance as well, and just on the other side of the railroad tracks. It's not like you can cut across. Is it still possible that something happened to Noah on the field? They did load him up in a side-by-side, and then they had to rely on further down to the party house area instead. Let me just zoom out to make sure I'm facing the correct way. Back here. Because look, fence line running all the way down. fence line on the other side of the railroad tracks, even that field over there. If Noah Presgrove was dumped, put into a vehicle, and people was to drive off, but they didn't want to get too close to the party house or drive down the dirt road to pull out hair at its stop. But maybe, oh, they could have just cut across from over there. You can't. There's railroad tracks. The railroad tracks run all the way down, so you can't just pull out anywhere you want. It wouldn't be practical, probably damage caused to the vehicle, you could even get stuck, and there would have been visible damage to any fences nearby if anyone did try ploughing through to get a quick shortcut. Would anyone actually do that? I do always find that interesting. Maybe other people don't. It's like a burnout tyre mark, as if someone was in a rush. You can see the track marks as well. Now, that's turning as if you're going to Terrell down that way. So I don't think it's that significant. And as well, the timing and relevancy of this burnout tyre mark, well, at some point in the past, or maybe it could have been after Noah's death. Regardless, it's not ultimately important, but it just catches my eye, and sometimes some things catch my eye which doesn't with anyone else. But this seems like this would be the relied upon entry and exit point if Noah was to be dropped off and down the highway, because as said, the only other crossing along the railroad tracks is at the sand plant, and that's all fenced off with the field, so you couldn't go down that field. If Noah was on the field, like how the scenario that Sarah Long gave, which was interesting, collecting teeth in a field and people drunk. People can't be that smart or competent enough and that drunk to be able to pick up teeth all over the place, because maybe the size of them and the amount of them present. Well, first of all, how many teeth were loose and how many did you have to rely on picking up? And, you know, if they did have a phone, they could have used their phone torch to possibly locate on the ground. And on top, police haven't searched the field, so who knows what could have been there if anything did happen. We just don't know. And on top of it, in terms of what Kathy Bingham says about being loaded up in a side-by-side, not everybody agrees with that. Fair enough. We've not seen any evidence of it, hard evidence, but we just talk about it to spread awareness in between. Could that side-by-side have been driven down the field area and then Noah collected, instead of dragging or picking up Noah? I'll say we've transitioned just a little bit here because we've moved so far down the highway. It's gone to a different time of when it was taken, but still very like a wheat field. Are both fields wheat ones that look like it? Not quite dense in vegetation as it is on the near to the hard shoulder area, so maybe not as much to hide in the vegetation if it's quite flat, dry, dead, depending on the time. Yeah, and then the party house over there from a slightly different angle, vehicle parked up at the time. Was there anything else of interest in the distance? Let's see. Not really. Can't quite see from there because it is a distance. No street view nearby either. Look at the opposite side, like a wheat field or so. If that is a wheat field, it's the same texture, looks very similar to the party house field, depending on if it still looked like that at the time of which Noah attended. I don't know personally. Got to think of the time of the season, time of the month, not like that though, and anything else in between factor-wise. Because if the texture in the ground is like that, it's not thick with vegetation, so you might not lose as much in the field possibly. The ground, the hardness of it, if it's quite dry, it can be a bit rough and rugged, could cause some kind of scrapes if one was to be dragged, but you'd expect more marks moreover in other areas and not just more one side. My concept was if Noah was dumped or dragged in some way at the highway spot by someone, or if Noah was rolling somehow. But then again, no, it couldn't have been rolling. Being dragged by one arm, by someone dragging him to the side of the road. Dragged on the side, left side, more dominated in marks, visible. Maybe. You let me know what you think below. And in terms of the difference when you compare it to satellite imagery night and day, because look how green and lush, very luscious, with all the grass and the growth, but the other times, and the street view at different points when taken, it's very dry, brown, and not as bushy or thick. So that does play a bit of a factor in the case as well, and at the time of the party too. The ground did look rather dry and rough, rugged at the time of the party from, I guess, Caden Pressey's point of view when panning the camera about when Brylan Sweat slapped Noah and then ran off. There's that. Do we need to link the possible motives to the field situation? Well, for Noah to get to the field in the first place, you could question that if it did happen. That what, Noah tried leaving or tried walking away, ambushed or taken aside, dragged over to the field area? Or, like how some people said in the past, was Noah Presgrove running away and running down the highway and got caught up by the ones trying to get him? Could that be applied to the concept of running for a field then? Escaping from the partygoers? But if Noah really did that, wouldn't Noah be too drunk to be, I guess, running about? But then again, the teabagging, he seemed okay doing that. Maybe it weared off to some extent after eating the ramen noodles and the yogurt, possibly. Who could have chased after him or followed him down? And if they did, would it have been by vehicle or on foot as well? See, at the end of the day, some things could have been reinforced, strengthened, and others debunked if it was raining at the time. You might wonder why. If it was raining at the time and the ground was pretty moist and wet, then high chances of footprints being left in the ground and preserved as well, providing they're followed up on quick enough. But then again, considering that police supposedly didn't search the property or area, supposedly didn't, even though some partygoers or parents or guardians of partygoers have stated, well, we didn't touch anything, we actually left it for a week, we left it for 2 weeks, or we left it for a month, just in case the police wanted to search the area and the house itself. Based on that, it supposedly didn't happen. That's unfortunate. Would they have found anything? Who knows? But if it was to have been searched at the time, the property, the ground area, and if it was wet, leaving footprints in the ground, if Noah Presgrove was to be walking down the dirt road, heading east, then maybe the footprints would show that as proof. Match up with the footprints of Noah's, his shoes. Well, not shoes, because he wouldn't have... Well, yeah, no, it could have been shoes, because of the mismatched shoes, the Adidas one, Hey Dude shoe. Could have been used. But also for other partygoers to see where they got to and where they were at. Yeah, if there's driving about as well, you'd get the track marks, and track marks are just as important. Relied on it to an extent in the Dylan Rounds case, such as footprints leading up to the dirt mound where Dylan's boots were chucked behind, kind of disposing of evidence but in a very reckless way. Some track marks of vehicles coming and going, trying to work out what that was all about. So, you let me know what you think. I think footprints could have gone a long way if the ground was wet enough. But it wouldn't have mattered much if there were, if police didn't search the area, and with time, footprints wear away or break down through warm, cold, wet, hard ground, seasons, winter. It can break up footprints and it can be lost with time. So, still kind of fighting a losing battle there. If there was any tension or verbal disagreements and arguments and it escalated, for Noah to walk out of the house through the front porch and then walk around the back of the house to then walk down the field, it doesn't have to be this one exactly, it could be this one here. Somehow finding the point to cross over, because in this area along the way stretch there is a fence and there's barbed wire, so you probably have to go so far down to climb over a gate or a fence. And I don't know, just walking in that direction rather than walking elsewhere. What would Noah normally do? I know Kane said it's normal for Noah to walk away and be gone for about 30 minutes, and the odd chance there was once when he was laying in a ditch. But what would he normally do? I don't think Caden really elaborated on that. Where would Noah Presgrove normally walk off to? What type of environment? Would he head straight down a road, a pathway, or would he cut across a field for the sake of it? Jack believed at the time that Noah may have gone into the field to cool off or to hang about, and if it gets too hot, he'll just come back. But he didn't. Did Jack suggest the possibilities of Noah being in a field because Jack knew Noah was in a field, but tried wording it differently? But what would be the motive for Noah reaching the field? If Noah was sick of the place or needed to get away from the place, not that he did, but if like based on a theory, and considering he was rejected, turned down in rides back home, if he was to walk towards the highway, as stupid and reckless and impractical that is, if Noah's drunk at the time, is he going to be thinking clearly? Just those actions themselves would show desperation, but it would also be justified for heading in that direction because you were intending going that way by vehicle in hopes of going home, but you never got the chance. So take matters into your own hand. In terms of going across a field, what do you gain by that? What's the point? So it's just about breaking it down, trying to understand what's going on in the person's mind as well. And maybe we could do a bit of coverage on that with Noah Presgrove in just a second. Just a little bit deeper, the psychology of it to some extent. Whilst we've seen party footage, which 99.9% appears to be positive, happy, calm, somewhat stable, not too drunk or reckless either. Maybe there's an exception somewhere, what we've not seen. But the psychology, the mindset of Noah, yeah, you can also consider other partygoers as well, what's going through their mind at the time leading up to Noah's death, because most people, you'd think, or possibly have head in the clouds, totally unaware of the events that we're going to follow next. The same with Noah Presgrove. Would that be the case? Do you think that Noah Presgrove, his head, his mind was like any other time, any other party? I know some people in the past suggested probably felt a level of danger, felt threatened, hence why he asked or told Brylan, do you have my back? And let me tell you something, I've heard that mentioned a few times now online, but I've not once seen a single screenshot of it. So that's great. Kind of reminds me of the shredded fingertips all over again. Oh boy. But not that you can get an answer, let's be honest, you can't really get an answer now. Noah can't speak himself. But what would the mind of Noah have been like? Not in the moment of death, because you could say, well, obvious, they might have felt scared, they might have felt hurt, shocked, surprised, if they had time to react. But leading up to it, and even when walking away from the party house, supposedly, and possibly the direction he went in, what was the mindset behind that? I'll go in that direction to get away from everyone, to cool off. I'll go somewhere where people can't find me, so then I can cool off. I wonder. And what did other people think at the time when they started hearing about Noah being missing? Oh, well, same as usual, no different here. And then what? Time elapses, passes by, and then it's like, you know what? It's getting on a bit, and we've still not seen or heard from him. Getting a little bit worried and concerned now, and then possibly action taken. See, Noah specifically, but it could apply in general in life, that certain moments or most of the time, you may not know what's really going on in the person's mind. Whilst they might show a smile on the face, on the inside could be a completely different story. For Noah Presgrove at the party, maybe a smile on the face, but on the inside, maybe just a tiny bit frustrated because of rejected with the bedroom sleeping situation, and maybe because of being rejected from getting a ride back home, right? Other things going on in the mind. Also, it might come down to the environment you're in. Sometimes if you're in a certain environment, regardless of how you may feel inside, you might be obliged to appear normal, neutral. You might feel obliged to smile and to show qualities of yourself, but not truly in a natural way, because you've got no choice. Because it's a part of what? The environment you're in, a part of the role you play in that moment and who you're with. And then another time or later on, you go elsewhere, you drop the act, you drop that face, and then the real you shows. But does anyone ever get the chance to see it? With Noah Presgrove at that party in the environment that he's in, and with possible comparisons to previous parties, and comparisons to Caden Pressey and his recollection of thoughts, considering how inconsistent it can be at times and unfortunate, yes. What's going on in the minds there, besides the whole trauma, besides the whole memory loss? If you put that aside, as in before it happened, and you look at these people at previous parties when bad things did not happen, death did not happen, were their recollections and what they remember just as wonky as the final party that Noah attended? Or was there a bit more accuracy then? Was there any reason to lie back then, or get so mixed up back then, and then compare it to how it's been in the September 2023 one? You know what I'm saying? And yeah, that's just how it is. The mind with Noah Presgrove, and really anyone, when you look at it retrospectively, more so, but even in the moment, you see someone, how they appear, but you might not know what's going on inside of their mind or what they're thinking themselves. You might have a general idea of them, but they themselves may have different thoughts or feelings about you. And such as at the party, yeah, it's been worded as the strangers coming along. We could externally interpret that as, well, strangers, Texas boys to Noah Presgrove, maybe they don't get on well, maybe they don't gel well together. But then you hear the stories of possible Texas boys being involved in the side-by-side rollover, of all things, putting their trust in a stranger, Noah, and vice versa, Noah being in the presence with the majority against him. If anything went wrong, side-by-side rollover occurs, and yet they're all laughing and joking. So the interpretation doesn't quite link up with the supposed reality, but then the supposed reality may not link up to the true mind of what's going on in someone's head at the party. Not saying it's the case, because Robin had said that at least 5 Texas boys were cleared, whether that's all of the Texas boys or most or some, but someone as a passenger or someone nearby around the time, maybe a stranger to Noah, but laughing and joking in the moment. Are they laughing with or laughing at? Are they truly laughing, or is there a different thought or feeling within? Some things can be dysfunctional, other things can be clogged up and it can't be shown, or it's not crystal. And with this case, it's not exactly crystal clear when inferring and trying to understand it from different sides and angles. It's not that clear always. And even when you think you've got a grip or an understanding of someone, their mind, how they are, someone in the community, the case, the overall situation, holistic or concentrated, you think you've got there, you think you've got an understanding, and then tables turn upside down and it might be back to square one. But sometimes there's not much you can do and it might be out of the control. And it comes down to those within the case or those within the community to make things clear, to set the record straight, to show what's really going on or what did at the time. And if they don't, well, here's where it is on them. And that can apply anywhere, to be honest. So with that being in mind, we've put aside the motive factor today because we're just focusing in on the environment and the location tied in with people's thoughts and what was mentioned in the past. The only other interesting point mentioned by Sarah Long when responding back to Jasmine Milan on Facebook when Jasmine was getting flack in the past for the Snapchat post, it was mentioned by Sarah Long that, oh yeah, and you, Jasmine, you lot party goers, the night before you found Noah and brought him back to the house. As if the night before, what, Monday? Sunday? Or Saturday night? Saturday night or Sunday night, Noah walked away, went missing, partygoers went out searching for him, found him and returned him back to the house. No one talks about that anymore. Sarah Long mentioned it in the past. No one's brought it back up. So with what I've just said there, add on below in the comment section as to what you think, whether you believe it's true or false or a misunderstanding. And the more times Noah walked away and the more times people tried searching for him over a couple of days, one time successful, the other time not so much, why does Noah need to get away so much from that party then, on and off? If that did happen. So let that settle in your mind. I hope you enjoyed the video today. If you want to hit the thumbs up, share the video, that'd be much appreciated. We'll see what happens next and what needs to be covered next. If I do have time, I'll try and catch up with the Caden Pressey conversations, which I did a little series on. Still some unfinished business there. And then time will tell if there's any more breaking news. My name's Wallite Ref. I'll see you next time. Goodbye for now.